Hi, my name is Michelle. I had Moran as my doula in November 2016 and I did the HypnoBirthing course through her. She's asked me to talk about my birth story and my experience with hypnobirthing. So I actually heard about hypnobirthing on Facebook through a girl I knew. She kept posting about it and saying how amazing it was when she had her baby. And she loved it so much she actually became a hypnobirthing practitioner. So I had a quick look at what it was and thought I should keep that in mind for when I had a baby. So I contacted Moran when I fell pregnant. I wanted a doula to be my voice in the hospital and provide extra support, just because I had no idea what was going to happen and neither did my partner, and I knew that I just needed extra support and someone to help if the medical staff wanted to push me into something I didn't want to do. So Moran asked me if I wanted to do the hypnobirthing course with her and talked about how amazing it was and her own personal experience and how she had a traumatic birth with the birth of her first child, and then how she found hypnobirthing and used those techniques with the birth of her second child and how different it was and how positive it was, and it was essentially pain-free. So I said yes and I signed up to it. So we went to Moran's house, I think it was 4 or 5 times, maybe every fortnight. It was just myself, my partner and Moran. And before the first class, I didn't really know what to expect. I thought we were just going to go there and learn about breathing techniques. But we started the first class learning about how the body works and what happens to the body when you're in labour. And I found this really interesting because I was 31 and had no idea that my body did this or what actually goes on when you're in labour. So that was really useful. And also the history of birth and why or how it's become the way it is today, and why so many women fear it, and why so many more women these days are having C-sections. And that was really interesting as well. And I think this knowledge is really important and a good ground basis for the course, because you have this knowledge so you're not going into labour unprepared, and that you have this knowledge when you're going into hospital and medical staff are trying to push you into something that you don't want to do. You can say yes or no and you can back it up. And then she talks about the interventions at the hospital, pros and cons of all interventions and if they're necessary or not. And then the hypnobirthing techniques and using the power of the mind and these techniques to harness the power of the mind, so affirmations and visualizations and the breathing techniques, just to get in that space and have a positive outlook on your birth, so that you're not going into labour with fear and essentially stopping the body from doing what it wants to do. So my birth story, Moran taught us that labour normally starts at night when your body's most relaxed, and that's what happened to me. I went to bed Sunday night and I started getting really intense period pain frequently, and that went all night pretty much until the sun came up. I messaged Moran and told her what happened, and she told me to get some rest that day in case I was to go into labour later on, and so that I had the energy to get through labour. But I couldn't sleep, and I actually had a midwife appointment and an acupuncture appointment booked in on the Monday, so I went to them. But then I tried to get to bed early, about 7, but then the contractions started again, and they were a bit more intense this time. I had a really horrible lower back pain every time I had a contraction, and I also felt nauseous every time I had a contraction, so the two feelings at the same time. But in between each contraction I actually felt okay. I could chat to my partner, I was on my phone, So I still wasn't really sure when to contact her. It was getting more intense, but I still sort of felt okay in between. But I just wanted a bit more support because just felt like I didn't know what I was doing. So I called her, or my partner called her at around midnight. And she was driving up from the Gold Coast to Brisbane, so it still took about 45 minutes. And when she got here, I was leaning on the bed, sitting on a football. So she got me up. All the lights were off in the house, just a few lights were on. And she got me walking around in between contractions, and I told her that I was having really bad lower back pain. So for the next contraction, she got me to put my foot up on a chair, so that my hips were opened. And during the contraction, she put pressure on my lower back, which really helped with that lower back pain. So we did that a few times, and in between I was just walking around the house in the dark, just in the zone, breathing and trying to relax in between each contraction. And then when I felt another one coming up, I'd put my foot back up on the chair and do that with the pressure on the lower back. Then she said, for the next contraction, I want you to put your hands up on the wall and your feet shoulder width apart, and to sway your hips during the next contraction. So that contraction was a bit longer and a lot more intense. And I swayed my hips, and then once that contraction finished, my waters broke, and then I had this real urge to bear down. I just really wanted to push. But Moran was really surprised. She didn't know I was that far along because I was just sort of moaning through the contractions. And so she was like, did your waters just break? Are you pushing? So she pulled me into the bathroom and had a look, and she could see the vulva was opening and things were happening. And I just had this real urge to push. I was just in the zone. I was like grunting and pushing. So she spoke to my partner and got him to call the ambulance and call the midwife and get some towels because the baby was coming. I actually had a water birth booked at the hospital, and I was still kind of hopeful I was going there for the water birth, but that didn't happen. The paramedics arrived, and Moran thought that they were just going to deliver the baby at home because she was pretty much here. But they wanted me to get up and get in the ambulance. And I actually got up and I felt okay. I walked to the ambulance, but I could feel the baby right in the birth canal. And when I got on the stretcher, I felt like I was sitting on her. She was like right there. And then 2 more contractions in the ambulance, and she was born. So it all went really quickly, and I think what really helped was that I was at home and where I felt most comfortable. But the techniques that really helped me from the HypnoBirthing course, I think, was 1, the knowledge, 2, having the positive outlook on birth and not having that fear and knowing what's going to happen. I thought I would just be in like Zen mode and inhaling for 10 and exhaling for 10, but that didn't really happen. Things ramped up really quickly, and I think the main breathing technique that I used was the birth breathing. There's a section in the book where she talks about birth breathing and how the body has a natural expulsive reflex, and the body and the baby are just doing its thing. The body wants the baby to come out. It's the same as when you go to the bathroom for number 2. And just letting your body, just relaxing your body, letting it do its thing and breathing through it. So I think that's what really helped me when the contractions really ramped up and got intense. Just breathing through it. I had my eyes shut and I just relaxed my body. What also helped, Moran did the lower back pressure, which really helped with the pain. And she kept saying the intensity brings the baby closer to you, which helped because instead of just being like, you can do it, you can do it, it sort of reminds you that this pain is temporary. It is intense, but it's bringing the baby closer to you, and that really helped as well. I also did affirmations. I had them printed out on my bathroom mirror, so I saw them every day. I listened to the tracks, the hypnobirthing tracks on the train to and from work every day. Just being prepared and going into labour, I think that really helped. And just having a positive outlook on birth. And it definitely helped. I had a positive birth. I'm not traumatized from my birth. I was home within 4 hours after having my daughter. I didn't have to heal from a C-section scar. I didn't tear. And yeah, I think just the main important thing was that I was not traumatized and I had a positive birth and I had the birth I wanted. So I definitely recommend hypnobirthing, and I definitely recommend a doula if you can afford one. I will definitely be having Moran as my doula for my next baby if she's free. Yeah, and I hope that's useful.